Hi, it's Doug Sesserman. Welcome to American Associates Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, live from Israel Ben-Gurion Briefings. It's noon Eastern time and 12 p.m. 12 p.m. is noon Eastern time here in New York. I'm in my virtual office, and it's 7 p.m. in Israel. Today we have a really great panel. We're looking forward to this fascinating and very interesting and important webinar on Bedouin society in Israel and at Ben-Gurion University in particular. We have an incredible panel, 2 faculty members, 2 Bedouin students. I want to introduce Professor Jihad El-Sana, Dr. Sarah Abu-Kaf, Siwar Abu Freih, and Rahma Abu Srar will be our panelists. But before the webinar, I just want to start with some acknowledgments. First is it's very important to acknowledge Bob Arno, of blessed memory, who was a great champion of the Bedouin Negev, a great philanthropist, and he's deeply missed, but I think he'd be proud of all the great work happening at Ben-Gurion University. Bob served as president of the American Associates arm here in the States, and also was chairman of the Board of Governors of Ben-Gurion University. I also want to thank his son Josh, who I believe has joined us, as well as Brenda Slayton from the Jacob and Hilda Blaustein Philanthropic Group, and all of their trustees who do so much great work to support the Bedouins. And also Kevin Leopold from our staff, who's the executive director of the Northeast region, who works so closely with both Josh and Brenda to support the Bedouin community, as well as Moshe Caspi, the Dean of Students at Ben-Gurion University. I also want to have a quick shout out to Rabbi Joel Newman from the B'nai Vale congregation, who has joined us with a number of his congregants from Vail, Colorado. We welcome your participation and greatly appreciate your promoting this important webinar that we're doing at AABGU. And finally, I just want to thank the staff at AABGU who work so hard behind the scenes to do so much, and we're, I believe, on our 8th webinar live from Israel, our hashtag webinar Wednesdays. I don't know about you, but I look forward to these conversations every 2 weeks, and they've just done a great job. Led by Melody Mokhtarian, our director of events, Liz Kirshner, who worked hard behind the scenes, Ronnie Strongen, who runs our marketing effort as the CMO, Sari Berkovich, and the team. So thank you all. Kara Bortman, also our digital manager, I know is on and managing our live from Facebook feed. So it takes a village, certainly, to raise a community and to run a company. So let's get started. This is how the webinar is going to work. For a number of you participated before. We're in broadcast mode. As the webinar takes place, you can ask questions by clicking on the Q&A function. I'll be able to read your questions and monitor them throughout the webinar, and we'll use the last 15 minutes to focus on audience questions. We're going to start with Jihad, who's going to provide a summary of Bedouin society in Israel, which is just incredibly fascinating. And then we'll move to the other panelists. So let's start with Jihad. Everybody ready? I think so.
It's okay.
Okay, so Jihad, let me introduce you first, and then it's all yours. Jihad El-Sana is the rector at the university, which for some of you in the States would know that position as the provost, the head of academic affairs. Jihad is the rector's advisor for student affairs for the Arab community and also from the Department of Computer Science. Jihad is a professor of computer science at BGU's Department of Computer Science. He actually led the department from 2015 to 2017 and currently heads up the department's visual media unit. As the rector's advisor on Arab affairs, Jihad represents Ben-Gurion University in recruiting prospective Bedouin students. His research interests include document image analysis, image processing, computer graphics, augmented reality, and pattern recognition. He has published more than 100 papers in referred journals and conference proceedings, Professor El-Sana received his BS and master's degree in computer science from BGU. He's also a Fulbright scholar and did his doctoral studies in the United States at the State University of New York, Stony Brook. Professor El-Sana was among the founders of the Academic Association for the Development of Arab Society in the Negev. He also established the Ahed High School for Science, which recruits excellent students from all over the Negev and prepares them for academic life in science and engineering. In 2001, Haaretz named Professor El-Sana among the top 100 people likely to influence the economy of Israel over the next decade. Jihad, the floor is all yours. Thank you for joining the webinar.
Okay, thank you for your great introduction. So I'll just learn you with a little bit of presentation just to kind of to share with you some numbers. So when we are talking about the, pretty much I'm going to focus in the Bedouin in the Negev because there is two parts of the Bedouins in Israel. Small portion living in the north of the country and majority live actually in the Negev, and this will be our focus. We are talking about 280,000 people, about 25% of the Negev population. So it's actually 1 of every 4 people in the Negev is Bedouin. It's actually, and they have a different pattern of living. There is one city, which is Rahat, about 60,000, and 5 recognized villages, which is mean recognized, they receive some services, paved road, not everywhere, electricity, running water, but pretty much the services are not really the level we expected. 8 in a recognition process, which is mean they are formally recognized, but they have almost no services, not even electricity or running water. 16 unrecognized villages, which is mean they are living in completely no services, no paved road, no electricity, no running water, almost no houses because their houses is actually subject to demolition in every minute. And this is one of the major actually problem we are facing in the Negev. If I'm going to approximately talk about, maybe half of them will be living in recognized villages and half are living in unrecognized villages. Unrecognized, it's not only the mean of living, it's the mean of services in all from education, health, transportation, and actually all aspects of life. And this is definitely one of the major problems we are facing. And this is something which is a struggle that have been going for years. Every time there is a progress, sometimes good progress, sometimes really very slow. This is the one issue, then one point, if I'm going to talk about the Negev. The next point, if I'm talking about the geography, I'm just here showing a map for you that who are not really familiar with this. So this is what, when we are talking about the southern part of the Negev, we are talking about this area approximately. Pretty much most of the Bedouins in the Negev are saturated, actually exists in this area. And this is actually the map of this area. Here we have Rahat, Lakia, Hura, and here is the city of Beersheba. And we have the recognized villages are in blue. The green is actually in process of being recognized. And the white spot are actually villages which are not recognized. Now we are talking about population, which is pretty much, they are Arabs, speaking Arabic, Muslims, actually Sunni. And this is the general kind of like attribute of the community. It's actually a very poor community. It's actually the poorest in the state of Israel. They are ranked in the lowest level. And this is one of the major problems, also ranked highest in unemployment. And this is actually a direct cause because of the education problem. So if we are looking at the education system, it's actually 60% of the population are below age 18, which is really great things. We have about 40 high schools in the entire Negev, and we have maybe about like close to 100 elementary and middle schools. But unfortunately, this education system is in the lowest in the country in all parameters. And about only 9% of the high school students actually attend higher education, which is mean academic institute. I'm talking about universities, colleges, teacher seminar, almost any kind of like institute, which is, we actually call it a higher education. Until recently, actually, most of the students were actually the excellent student, or not only the excellent, the male excellent student whose parents are wealthy enough and are willing to send them to study in the north. They were going to study actually in high schools in the north, in Haifa, Nazareth, in the Triangle, and in the Galilee. And recently, actually, there was one actually progress, which is the Ahad High School for Science, which was established, and they recruit excellent students. It actually was thanks to the UGA Federation of New York, which actually provide the initial support with for the establishing the school, with also one of our great friends, Steve Shapiro, who was one of the leading connection with the UGA Federation, which actually started to recruit high school students, excellent high students, and actually stops the flow of excellent students in the north, and gave opportunity for also girls to attend excellent students. Now, when we are talking about actually going to BGU, it's actually the major institute, and actually the goal or the dream of every Bedouin students like to attend. We are having about 568 students. It's actually split into sorry, I think there is a mistake in the top. It's actually the sum of the two numbers. Ignore the number in top. It's 568 female and 135 male. This is the, so that the sum is incorrect. And if we realize something which is,
I think it's
the majority are female.
Female. I think the sum is correct, actually. Just under 600 students, but close to 70%
Yes.
of them women.
Yes, about 70%, but actually the sum in title near student is incorrect. So this is, the majority of them is actually are in liberal art and humanity, which is really great because we have a lack of teachers in all subjects. And this is one thing which is, they have also social and academic challenges. And Sarah will elaborate about this because actually it's expertise. And I'm not going really to talk about this at all. One of the good things that we are having actually not the government with the established of the Malag, which is the higher education office, is actually establishing a new program funded by the government to address the issue of science and engineering, not only science engineering, but all subject which is more geared toward jobs, and there is a lack of people and manpower, or actually man and woman power, sorry, in this subject, which include science and engineering. It include social worker and psychology and another like a subject. So I think we believe that engineering and science is very important because it's actually will expose the students to more opportunity and more jobs, and would actually will increase the socioeconomic situation of the community. We believe that the idea of also programs to address science and engineering will help actually deal or actually remedy the problem of the very low number of a male student. Actually, majority of the students, male students, are going to medical studies, but actually this is not really only the case, because in high schools we see there is actually a recession in the number of male students who actually planning, not only attending, planning to attend academic institutes. So this is the things which is we are in terms of job opportunity now. There is actually high employment. It's not actually because of lack of jobs, but actually because of the lack of I would say appropriate training for these jobs. Because in Israel nowadays there is a lack of engineers, there is a lack of scientists, and actually there is a need for many companies, but actually most of the Bedouin students lack the appropriate education and training. And we believe that in the university, by the new programs like the Gateway for the Academy and another program which will help this. I actually forget to mention the idea of the 90s breakthrough, mid-90s, thanks to actually Professor Abishai Braverman and Bob Arno, his name has just was mentioned, is actually the number of students, Bedouin students, jumped from about like small number. When I started beginning of almost 90s, like 89, we were actually 5 boys and 1 girl. And this number actually remained below 20 students until mid-90, when actually Bob Arno and Avishai Braverman actually have started a program to recruit Bedouin students under a different measure. And this is what we are saying. We need to recruit excellent students using appropriate measures, because for Bedouin students, it's not the same measures. We need to measure them differently. And also providing scholarships, thanks to, as you mentioned, Josh and Brenda, who's actually doing a great job in actually securing funds for the students. So this is the 2 issues which is we have been trying to learn how to really to tackle and to address. Unfortunately, we are seeing a breakthrough. It is slow than what we expect, but the number of students in science engineering is increasing. We have a really dramatic increase in the number of Bedouin students in computer science and engineering. Like the number I can say about my department, computer science, the numbers actually jumped from 1 to 2. Now we have about 15 students in the Department of Computer Science, which is really a great number and a great opportunity for jobs. So this is one of the things which is we are changing. I think also the atmosphere university started to understand the mentality and adapt to the Bedouin student. Yes, there are numbers are not really big, but the Dean of Students, Moshe Kaspi, is actually doing a great job in actually providing mentors, the mentor program for the Bedouin students. The main idea is actually for people who will provide them a social like guidance through the administration and having to pave their way through the academic life, academic mentors, which is mean other student who can help them in their courses, study in a kind of in a private and groups, which is really great. And I think the issue which is for both female and male started actually to take shape. I see great progress over the recent years. We also see that there is opportunity to start actually a high-tech industry, because me and Sarah also board members in one of the first actually Bedouin company, which is actually now employing more than 20 Bedouin engineers in the Gaviam high-tech park near the university. And there is actually a lot of progress. There is also the budget which is coming from the government. Unfortunately, not the entire budget is well allocated or well utilized, because this is kind of like another problem, but it's not really the scope of this talk. And so for now, I think this is the major points I would like to cover. I will elaborate based on question, because I think will be the best way to address this. Thank you, Doug, again.
All right, thank you very much, Jihad, for that important overview. Our next panelist is Dr. Sarah Abu-Kaf, one of our very favorites at the university. Not that everybody isn't our favorite, but Sarah is a senior lecturer in cross-cultural psychology and the head of conflict management and resolution at Ben-Gurion University. Her work focuses on sources of stress, coping resources, and strategies. She's also an expert in the area of mental health challenges for different subgroups within the Bedouin Arab society, including youth, students, women, and the elders. Dr. Abu-Kaf received her bachelor's, master's, and PhD in clinical psychology, all from BGU. She was also a Fulbright scholar. She was part of the Fulbright Rabin postdoctoral scholar in the Department of Anthropology at a little-known university in the States called Harvard. Among numerous honors, the U.S. Department of State named Sarah to the Women in Science Hall of Fame in 2014. And in 2018, Forbes magazine named Sarah one of the 50 most influential women in Israel. Some additional notes about Dr. Abu-Kaf. She was the first in her family to attend university. We want to hear more about that. And in 1995, she was one of only 5 Bedouin women at Ben-Gurion University, and that's when she met Bob Arno. Dr. Abu-Kaf was only able to afford her postdoctoral studies at Harvard with scholarship support from Bob Arno, who remained committed to supporting her education throughout her educational career. Sarah, take it from here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Doug, for the great introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I am so happy to be here today with you. Thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you, Doug, Liz, Kevin, Ronnie, Melody, all the staff behind the scenes, and the people who are involved in the organization of this great webinar. I am Sarah Abu-Kaf. I am a mother of 6 children, live in Umbatin village, a small Bedouin village in southern Israel, about 15 minutes from the city Beersheba. I am a senior lecturer and the head of the Conflict Management and Resolution Program at BGU. In my research, I'm interested to know the major difficulties and the stressors face the Bedouin students, how they deal and cope with these stressors and difficulties, which resources are available for them, and the implication of their ways of coping on mental health indices, as well as on their academic achievements. Because I have a very short time, I will address one important process, that this process is so important because the vast majority of the Bedouin students are going through this process. As in my research, I found that this process is strongly connected with a set of difficulties experienced by the Bedouin students. This process is the acculturation process. The acculturation process happens when people from one culture live or be in an intensive contact with people from another culture. Bedouin students come from the Bedouin society, which is more traditional, collectivistic. The Bedouin, as Jihad mentioned earlier, the Bedouin villages are underdeveloped, the recognized and unrecognized villages, all of them considered to be undeveloped villages and towns. The common language is Arabic. Bedouin Arabs have unique cultural values which affect the way they're thinking, the way they behave, the way, as well as their goals in terms of the academic life, as well as in terms of, in general, their goals in the general life. The academic setting is more Western, modern, more individualistic, and the common language is Hebrew. The new environment has its unique cultural values with a different motivation and appropriate ways to behave in different situations. To adapt to the new environment, students should learn new skills and to adapt new behaviors and values. Sometimes there's a clash between the new and the old values. When this happens, a significant stress experienced by the Bedouin students. In our research, we found that the more acculturative stress experienced by the students, the higher depressive symptoms reported by them. I want to add to that experiencing a higher level of acculturative stress, also the danger that those students cannot use available resources in their environment. They couldn't use social support, other resources available in the academic setting. In this point, I want to share with you how I experienced in my personal life the acculturation process. We are going back to the 1995. As Doug mentioned earlier, we were only 5 female Bedouin students in the campus. We were a large group of female Bedouin students that year. And in that year, we met Bob Arno, and he continued to contribute and to also to be in contact with all of us and to provide a scholarship for this group and the other groups of Bedouin female students. During my first years in the university, each time that I am going from the university to the village and from my village to the university, back and forth, I felt a strong feeling that I am living in words, that I cannot integrate these 2 words. In my village, the people look different, speak Arabic. They have a different way of thinking and a different goals from life. In the university, I have a different, the people look different and they think in a different way. They have a other motivation for behaviors. They have our different ways of coping with the stressors. And many times it was so difficult for me to even receive call when I am in the village, receive call from the university, because I felt that I am so different, Sarah, when I am in the university versus when I am in the village. It was so difficult. It was a very confusing and a distressing experience. In the section of the Q and A section, I will be so happy to share with you how I gradually adapt and operate in this process, and how I managed to bring more colors to the university from my village, and to bring more color from the university to the village, back to my village. During the acculturation process, people are confused and distressed, and they need to be aware to this process, because this process, personally, I felt a relief to know that this process is a regular, a normal process, that when I come to a new culture. So students in the acculturation process need to be aware to the process that they are going through, as well as they need the help and the support and the guidance of people who have more experience and knowledge about this process. Ben-Gurion University doing a lot to help Bedouin students with the different difficulties, and to help them, for example, helping them with the language difficulties, help them through different projects to close the academic gap that they have. They come from a very lower, they come with a very lower academic preparation, and sometimes they need to close the academic gap to be ready to the academic level. As well as the Ben-Gurion University and the Dean Services, headed by Moshe Caspi and the great staff, they are providing students with a social mentoring, people who can mediate the new environment, the academic environment, and help the students to reflect also about their feelings, about difficulties, and how they can adapt new values or new behaviors from the new environment. these behaviors is so important in order to adapt and to succeed in the academic life. As well as I want to mention the Ben-Gurion University with the help of the Arno family opened the Center for Bedouin Students. And I call the Center, the Center for Bedouin Students as a dream come true, because the students have a beautiful facility. They use this facility to conduct social events, as well as to do more study groups. And this is a beautiful facility in the middle of the university that gives the Bedouin students the feeling of form, that the university include them, aware for their specific needs and their unique needs, and they give them a very unique answers. Still, there is a lot to do to help Bedouin students to do well in this process. And the university tries to find new ways to help the students to manage and to do very well and to succeed in this process. Here I want to address a new initiative by the university, and I am involved in this initiative, and I'm leading the writing of this document. We're working on manual aimed to increase the cultural sensitivity and the cultural competence of the BGU staffs on the administration levels and the academic levels, how they can deal and act in a sensitive way and culturally adapted way in front and in the interaction with the Bedouin students in particular, and in general in front of other minority students who are coming to BGU for academic studies. The acculturation process is very demanding. It's very difficult and complicated process. But if you ask me, this is the most important process happen to the Bedouin students. This process have a lot of fruitful and bring them forward to be ready to be integrated in the job market in particular, but in the Israeli society in general. I will be so open to talk more about different aspects of what I already mentioned, and also other research projects related to students, the social life of the Bedouin students. I will leave that to the Q&A section. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Before we turn it over to the students, and we're so looking forward to hearing from them, we're getting a lot of questions. So again, a reminder to the audience, if you do want to ask a question, just click on the Q&A function, type in your question, and we'll get to those questions toward the end of the program. But there is one, Sarah, that I wanted you to address. It's come up from a few people. The question is, why are there so many more female Bedouin students than male students? Do we have insight as to why that is? You need to unmute.
There is it seems to be a easy question, but it is a very complicated, I have a very complicated answer. The Bedouin female students, even in the early stage in the high school, they see a more and more role model, successful role model, a female role model. And because of that, they have more inspiration to go to the path of higher education more than men. I want to add to that the Bedouin female and the Bedouin male have a very different way of life inside the family. They have a different temptation. For the Bedouin students, the female Bedouin students, to go to the higher education, this is the preferred path and exit from poverty. For men, they have a number of alternative paths to go out from poverty. There's another aspect. I think today we, Jihad, in our earlier discussion, we addressed that the male students in high school, they feel that they are minority. Most of the time, they feel bad in the social and in the academic aspect or sides. They feel, for example, I can give my example, the example of my sons. I have twins in the high school. Most of the time, they are not participating in social events because most of the majority of the class, they are females. So going back to the 50 and the 60, that women were the minority in a different discipline and discipline, we experiencing the same pattern, but the opposite, that male experience to be the male in the position to be the minority group. This position is so difficult to feel good with yourself and to feel that you want to succeed and to stay in the academic environment, beginning from the high school.
Jihad,
I would
did you
add
want to add
some
something?
words concern, yeah, to this
Yeah, please.
point. There's actually, I think there is two actually issues with this. One is actually for female, is they don't have the accepted opportunity for job, either a teacher or a doctor. They cannot go work as a waiter, they cannot work in a restaurant, for example, or drive a truck or do any other job. These are the two open jobs by general. And this is one of the things. So if they are not educated, they pretty much will not have any job. The other issue, yes, for boys, there is another opportunities, which is actually, in fact, they can do and other jobs like truck driver or any other job like in construction. Unfortunately, there is also another kind of like a dirty jobs, which is actually open for boys and not open for girls. And I will be really the bad guy here. So it's actually, forgive me. Definitely there is a high rate of crime, and this is one thing. And part of this is actually the violent and the kind of I would say, for example, drug dealing. And this is not really tackled and not addressed enough by the police and the government, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you,
And this is definitely closed in front of girls and open widely for boys.
Okay. And the society is a patriarchal. It's a different society than what we might be used to in the States or in most of Israel. But let's hear from the students.
That's true, but you will expect this to be the opposite. This has been the opposite until actually the almost 10 years, 15 years ago. Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Sure. As an observer, one of the things that at the American Associates, I know we're incredibly proud of BGU and the close to 600 Bedouin students, and by far it's the university in Israel with the most Bedouins. And if you want to influence the trajectory of a society anywhere, you're going to influence that society through the women. So we're very happy with our women students, and we have two phenomenal panelists, so let's get to them. So we have Siwar Abu Freih. She's a fourth-year student doing a double bachelor's degree in psychology and foreign literature and linguistics. In high school, Siwar was a physics and computer science major, and she participated in a science program at BGU and then switched her direction. She lives with her family in a large Bedouin city called Rahat. It's probably the largest Bedouin city actually in the world, from my understanding. Her sister was also a student at BGU studying nursing, and her other siblings also have degrees, but from other schools. She was awarded a scholarship by the local municipality in exchange for doing volunteer work. Siwar works with a special project called Nur that helps girls ages 15 to 25, both Bedouin and non-Bedouin, take educational courses and other personal development classes. Siwar, thank you so much for joining us. Please share your experience in terms of your family growing up and in particular at the university.
Hello, everyone. I'm Siwar Abu Freih. As it has been said, I do a double major in psychology and English literature. Actually, the school Jihad talked about I was in, which is Ahad School for Science. And that school gave us a scholarship to do a science project in physics in the Ben-Gurion University. When I actually decided to apply to university, I was very puzzled at the beginning. Finally, I actually decided to go with something a little bit not all scientific. Like psychology is somewhere between science and I think humanity. Like it's somewhere between science and I guess humanities major, because of the research, the way research is done in psychology, in the psychology department, but it's not all scientific and numbers. So I thought that somewhere in between would be very suitable for me. I guess if I want to go back a little bit before going into university, I've actually had a clash of cultures growing up because my father is Bedouin, but my mother is not. She's not exactly from the north, it's somewhere in the center, but still they're not Bedouin. I have experienced this clash between cultures early on growing up. I had to realize that there are some words used differently in Bedouin and in my mother's accent. I had to also compare the kind of well, the both of those societies were conservative societies, but somehow the Bedouin society I actually grew up in was more conservative than the society my mother grew up in. So whenever we went there, I had to also adapt to the environment I'm in. Also in terms of talking, because sometimes if I speak in a Bedouin accent, my cousins from my mother's side wouldn't understand entirely. And then going to university, actually in high school, I was a very excellent student. I'm not bragging, I'm just saying that I felt a very high level of self-efficacy in high school, I guess. I didn't feel like I had to work hard to study for most of the exams. And if I did, I usually did that like 2 weeks before, 1 month before, and I usually had good grades. But then going into university and studying in a department like psychology, which is considered one of the hardest departments to study in the university, also doing in exams that require a very high level of understanding the material you're studying, and also to know how to applicate that material to different kind of situations. So that was something I wasn't used to. And actually my first year in the university was really hard because all my self-confidence I had before, I felt like it crashed down. And it took me a while to recover from that. And also to adapt to what I'm supposed to be and how my studying should be. And I shouldn't be just memorizing terms. I should have like a really, really high level of understanding of the material, which is not in my mother language. And as you can probably assume or understand, Hebrew does not come right after Arabic. English does. So Hebrew is like a fourth language to me, not even a third language, because there is like written Arabic, there's spoken Arabic, and I had 2 accents to adapt with from my 2 sides in the family, and then English, then Hebrew. So that was really challenging. I actually felt like I had to deal with anxiety along the way. Many times I had to try to go back, take some steps back, and adapt to and try to focus on my mental health, and not focus so much on the grades, because I think being also a psychology major, you get lost in this maze of thinking about grades, because everyone wants to apply for an MA in psychology, because you need to major in something in order to be able to work. And then applying for a major in psychology for your MA requires really high grades. So I had to take a step back, a few stops along my BA, focus on being like mentally healthy, and realizing that I'm doing my best. I think this really helped me grow both as a human being and both as a Bedouin. I hope I'm not taking too much time. Stop me if I'm over talking.
You're doing great. Why don't you wrap up? By the way, your English is impeccable and your Hebrew is much stronger than mine. So you're doing just great. Why don't you wrap up, and then we'll turn it to Rahma, and then we'll come back in Q&A.
Okay. So mostly I feel blessed for the experience for going through these challenges. I think I've also learned to, this also encouraged me to try to help other students in the university. So last thing, and this is my wrap up, there's a program in the university where second-year students get to be some kind of a mentor for first-year students for their first semester. And it's called social mentoring. And actually, I've been doing that for 2 years now. And it's been really satisfying to be able to meet these new students who are in the same situation I was, and tell them that it's fine to be stressed out and anxious, especially when they give me a group of psychology students. So yeah, that's one of the things I really like to do there.
Thank you, Siwar, for joining us. It's great. Rahma Abu Srar is 19-year-old. She's the second-born child in a family of 11. She lives in Segev Shalom. We were speaking earlier. I've had a chance to visit her community before. She's a first-year bachelor's student in the Department of Foreign Literature and Linguistics. She studies both linguistics and literature. By the way, she's completely fluent in 3 languages. Arabic, obviously. Her English is outstanding in Hebrew. And she likes this field because it enables her to indulge in one of her greatest interests, which is language. Rahma was a participant and still is in the Gateway to Academia program, which was mentioned earlier, which provides academic, personal, and financial support for Bedouin students to ensure their success in higher education. Rahma, tell us about growing up in Segev Shalom and your experience so far as what we call a freshman at Ben-Gurion University.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Rahma, as I told you, Rahma Abu Srar. I live in Siwar Shalom, and known in Arabic as Jihad El-Sana, that's what it's like. It's right next to Beersheba, so it takes me about like 20 minutes to get to the university, by bus, of course. Growing up in my family with 11 members, my parents, I'm very thankful for them. They've been very supportive, and they've always raised us in such a way that they showed us that there is no difference between being a boy or a girl. And a lot of families are actually raising their kids in such a way. I'm really glad we're seeing that. And some of them are actually just started to treat their children the same way. Boy and girl have no difference. They can achieve whatever they set their mind to. They can reach their potentials. And well, of course, in my high school, also my teachers have had a great role in in helping me and showing me that you can choose whatever you want to. Although I had been majored in chemistry and biology in high school, I chose something completely different in a way, because as God just told you, I love languages and I wanted to indulge in them, to examine them closer. that's why I chose to learn literature and linguistics, and I'm doing that really. And honestly, like my experience like so far in Ben-Gurion University is such a great experience, with great kind people. I highly say, like, if I weren't participant in a Gateway to Academy and a special track for excellence, like for excellent students, I'm not sure if this would have been my experience, because they're helping us, as he said, financially, personally, and like as he said, personally, financially, and socially, everything. They're providing us with a scholarship and everything, and a supervisor. We got an amazing supervisor. She's extremely kind and professional as well. She always check on us and make sure that we're taking all the assistance that we need. Anything that we need, we can just go to her. And also the professors, teacher assistants, students in general, they're very kind and very supportive, and they're helping us as Bedouin students, like, to feel there's no such difference, and that we can integrate with them. And while interacting with them, as I've seen, like, before I'm going to university, we used to go, I don't know, like Bedouin community in general and surroundings, as I see. We don't go a lot to Beersheba or any other Jewish cities. We go, of course, to the bank, shops, and such things, but I think the real interaction happens in the university, and I've got to see that. I'm really pleased with that, and they really encourage all of the Bedouin students and everyone to go there, because this is the real interaction. They get to deal with their Jewish peers and our professors, teacher assistants, everyone, like, and they can see that you can put this together, and you can tell that although we have differences, we do have a lot of similarities, and that's great. And what else did I want to talk about? Yeah, that's pretty much it.
That was perfect, Rahma. By the way, this is a quick note to the audience. Thank you for being such a great audience. The questions are building like crazy, and there's some really insightful questions. We're not going to be able to get to all of them, but we will make an effort to answer those questions in an electronic format, but let's try to get to some of them. We had a question from a couple of our board members, so I want to ask those questions. Ellen Marcus and Lou Winarski both asked something similar, and I would turn it to the students or Sarah or Jihad to answer this. So one of Ellen's questions is, if you're a female student and you graduate, does it create a problem finding a suitable husband down the road? And then the other one from Lou and others is, how does a university education impact integration into broader Israeli society, both positively and negatively? Anybody would like to answer?
I'd like to answer the second one first. This is something which is, I'm not a girl, so I'm not really in the position to answer the first one. I think in general, there is pretty much every graduate of Ben-Gurion University. I'm not aware of any graduate of Ben-Gurion University who's unemployed. This is one thing. In addition, I think there is a career office which is try actually to more train student how to search for a job. They may not find the appropriate job, because actually everybody will find many people find a job as a teachers. For sometimes they thought as an engineers they will not find a job, but I think over the time people started to understand there is actually a shortage of engineers in Israel. Pretty much all people who graduate from computer science, electric engineering, chemistry, civil, almost all engineering really don't find any problem in finding a job. Also the people from science, usually they may not find a job in a company, but most of them will find a job in schools. Actually, we have the opposite problem. We need more actually people, more educated people than actually in order to, I would say, satisfy the demand for these jobs for both female and male. So this is one thing which is, I see right now we have a female principals of schools, engineers, doctors in the hospitals, almost all disciplines, which is really great.
I want to add also to the answer of Jihad, also that I want to relate to another angle. The students who graduate from BGU and other academic institutions in southern Israel, they have a unique experiences and they have a familiarity with the Jewish culture that they give them a lot of odds when they coming to the job market with they are speaking Hebrew fluently. They know the cultural issues. They have friends from different parts of the country, and all of these resources. Many times we have a research project on the integration of academic women from the Haredi culture and the Bedouin culture in the Israeli general job market. And many times even the professor in the university help them or mediate the job market and help them to apply for important jobs. So being in the academia give them a lot of experiences, skills, and knowledge that they need to use when they come to the job market. Now I want to reflect on the very, very interesting first question. We are dealing with that because we are dealing with that as a social phenomenon. There's a huge problem. I call it the unbalanced family. We are suffering with different marriages, that the women are very educated, but the man is mainly with a high school education. This condition or this situation is problematic for the development for the whole family. And I think because many girls go to higher education, they began to think about marriage 20 plus, and the boys, they stay in the 18, they began to think about marriages. In our village, when you are 24 years old, you come back to the village, most of the boys are married, most of the men are married. So this is but there is a solution, there is a different solution that make a huge change in the Bedouin society, because a lot of outside marriages, it's opened the box for the women and the possibility for the women. Women are open to marry with a different families that in the past it was forbidden to marry with these intracultural marriages. And even from the south, a number of women married to the men from the north or from the triangle or the center. So this is difficulties bring some problems in terms of unbalanced families, but also bring some good change that the Bedouin society open to observe, to be open to receive a different ways of marriages.
Thank you very much. We've got a question, Siwar and Rahma, for you. This is coming from Luciana Kolodny, who's involved with us. He's asking, as a student at BGU, how integrated and accepted do you feel on campus? You both need to unmute.
Or do you want to go, or should I go?
No, I think you should go first.
All right. Well, how much I feel integrated and accepted? Like, I really feel very accepted and integrated. Like, some would say, like, how is it like being? First of all, there's a lot of differences. How is it like being Black, first of all, and then how is it like being Bedouin in general in the university? But then I really feel accepted, haven't faced any form of like racism or anything like that. Honestly, I'm speaking. And everybody's just really kind and accepting for other cultures, because we have a lot of international students in the university on campus. So everybody is really willing to accept. They're willing to just, first of all, to get to know you first, and then like they accept you. That's what I see, honestly. So I'm really glad that I decided to study at Ben-Gurion University. Something I'll always be pleased with. That's it.
Just for our audience sake, we have about 20,000 students, 2/3 of them undergraduate, 1/3 of those students are graduate. And we do have 1,000 international students. Those are students in English-speaking programs from 50 countries from around the world, and around 2,000 Arab Israeli students, of which about a third are the Bedouin students. Siwar, did you want to comment on that question?
Yeah. Actually, the reason why I wanted Rahma to answer first, because I had a reason that you would have a positive answer, because Rahma studies both majors in the foreign and literature department. She's studying linguistics with literature. And as having an experience in that department, I knew it's a very warm and accepting and very, very comfortable department to study in. The class is usually small. It's 40 to 45 students in the class. The staff members, all of them are honestly amazing. And most of the time they're always aware of and behave culturally sensitive. But having studied in another department, which the class there is not small at all. I mean, the psychology department every year has almost 400 students. So in the class, students who come to class are usually 200. And there you can see a huge variety of people. So in psychology classes, I wasn't always comfortable. I wasn't always feeling accepted. Sometimes when I raised my hand, I felt like people looked at me like, oh, you can answer or you can talk. And it really sometimes felt like I was an alien there. But, and also not having a lot of Arab students with me in that department. In the literature department, there are like a group of Arab girls who are really close to one another and always speak about their challenges and what they're going through. In the psychology department, I actually felt most of the time really lonely. I felt like not a lot of Bedouin students choose this path. First, because girls usually look for something more practical. I want something that I could finish in 3 and 4 years and then go work immediately. Psychology, in order to actually work properly, you need an MA. And also guys would not think that it was practical at all to study for 6 and 7 years. Usually if they study for such a long time, they go to study medicine. So yeah, I've had some difficulties. I always felt like I needed to prove myself somehow and always needed to prove that I can adapt and I can be as good as everyone else. And yeah, well, mostly challenging, but again, I feel really thankful for.
I want to thank you, Siwar and Rahma, for your candid
a challenging
answers.
experience because I felt like it harnessed by it.
Can I also add something else?
Yeah, please do. And then we're going to need to wrap up because our hour has come to a close, as the prerogative of the moderator will go another 5 minutes. But maybe Rahma, go ahead and respond and then also add in a closing comment, and then we'll move to the other panelists.
Yeah, I'll just before that, I'll just say something. Go ahead, Rahma.
Okay, so what I wanted to say is about a problem that I'm facing. Started facing it ever since the pandemic started, the coronavirus pandemic, and mostly my peers, Bedouin peers who live in unrecognized villages, are like I told you, talked about them. Those who live in unrecognized villages are suffering. It has been difficult for them throughout this semester because of the internet connection. Of course, they don't have electricity in their unrecognized villages, so internet as well. And it has been really difficult for them, but also the university have tried to help them as much as possible. They have campus opened on the exam period, and also for that, they could have got from the university a modem for handling that problem. But yeah, that's the difficulty that I've personally suffered from it. Like for now, maybe 2 weeks ago, we kind of fixed our internet connection, but for that, I've also it was really bad. But yeah. That's it.
Well, thank you for also bringing up COVID-19 and the impact on going to school in this pandemic. We actually have launched with the university what we call an SOS campaign to support our students. We're in the middle of raising financial aid for additional scholarship money and support for technology, computers, etc., internet access like you're speaking to. And at the end of the webinar, I'll note where people can help or find more information. Jihad, you wanted to say something, and then
I wanted
a closing
to add,
remark, please.
Yeah, there is a big difference between people. Actually, the Bedouins are depicted in general in the media in Israel as not in a good way. And recently we have several incidents that actually was published in the media, which is actually even actually much worse than what I'm describing. And in contrast, actually, the feeling that within the campus, it's completely different atmosphere. And I think this is something which is we feel as professors and students, but actually sometimes it's very hard to see the contrast outside, because especially in the Israeli media, recently actually was an incident like treating Bedouins not as a human in some of the actually the social media. And so this is the contrast is not really easy to deal with.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to you, Sarah, next, and then Siwar will give you the final comments. Sarah, also, when you, in your closing remarks, address one question that people have asked, which is, after graduation, do most of the students go back to their communities, or do they integrate into broader Israeli society, or maybe go to another country?
I think the vast majority of the students who graduate from the academic institutions, they are so connected with their community. Maybe they will work in the general job market, but they are so affiliated, they are so connected to their communities. Most of the time, they live in their community. They stay and they live in their community. They use the same educational system. Even if they need to travel for a job, to travel for jobs. I want to address also the social environment of Ben-Gurion University. Recently, we conducted a research, a qualitative research about the barriers and the facilitating factors which may affect forming relationships and interactions between the Bedouin students and the Jewish students in the campus. And we found a very interesting findings that there is a lot of barriers in forming relationships in the university. Language barriers, age barriers, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in different periods and in escalation periods. Most of the time, the relationships in the campus are also affected. And there is a lot of facilitators. For example, there is a department that the environment in the departments, they are so warm and positive. And I think we from this research, we can know and have ideas about how to generate this warm and positive attitudes and accepting environments also in other departments that is considered to be a very tough and competitive departments. But we have our conclusions in this point. I want to also to thank Howard Shaw, who contributed to this important project, who are so interested and want to promote the relationships, the social relationships between the Arab students in general, the Bedouin students in specific with the Jewish community. And most of the students who have positive relationships during the academic life, when they go out to the general society, they have more power to be connecting and feel more safe and feel in a good position to initiate a deeper relationships with with their friends and work. So this is important phase, this is important stage. It's so important to build a strong relationships. It's not easy, there is a lot of challenges. And working on this stage, bring the Bedouin students in a more advanced position to be very integrated in the social life of the Israeli general population.
I think we are fortunate that most actually Bedouin students, after they graduate, come back to their villages and started to contribute and be part of the active. Actually, many of them actually become leaders within their community, which is really great things. For example, we are a group of academics who's actually very active, socially active. Some of them live in unrecognized villages and they choose to live without electricity, without running water, and be part of the activity within their villages and promote their villages, which is really great things. I always say that we need to act fast to promote our society, because we don't know the moment these students will graduate, will start to go to Tel Aviv and kind of disconnect with the community. It will become like the Western, like some of the Mushavim in the western part of the Negev, which is most of them are elderly people. So we are fortunate at this situation, and I think we need to maintain this and to keep this relation. Luckily, those who graduate from Ben-Gurion University has been very active in the social changes and making change within the community. And this is really something which is as part of creating networking, appropriate network with their Jewish peers. And also, I think the understanding of the general Israeli society, which is sometimes very different, as Sarah explained, from the Bedouin society.
Thank you very much, Jihad. One of the things we were talking about before, too, in terms of COVID-19, is that you do have a lot of Bedouin students who have graduated to be healthcare professionals, nurses and doctors, who then they have been very helpful back in their villages now, and have actually, in a way, challenged or changed the dynamic of the leadership hierarchy within the communities in a positive way. So that's terrific. Okay, Siwar, you're wrapping it up. Your final comments, and then we'll close this webinar, which has been just so fascinating.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to elaborate on what Professor Jihad El-Sana said, which I actually, as I came into university, I came in contact with a lot of people, educated people, Bedouin people, who were fascinating in terms of how much they took pride in their Bedouin in their background, and actually that has been really inspiring to follow their footsteps, to take pride in your identity, and somehow balance between wanting to make an improvement, but at the same time not forget to stay honest and stay true to who you are. You not make an improvement without trying to lose the Bedouin identity you come from. I think this is something I think about a lot, and I find really amazing in a lot of people, a lot of academics.
So thank you very much. I want to thank our panelists, Professor Jihad El-Sana, Dr. Sarah Abu-Kaf, Siwar Abu Freih, and Rahma Abu Srar. That's been just a great webinar on Bedouin life in Israel, and in particular, what's happening at Ben-Gurion University. For those that are interested in learning more or would like to help, you can go to our website, aabgu.org. There's all kinds of great information there. If you would like to donate, there are two different ways. You could donate to our new campaign called Support Our Students SOS, where we're raising financial aid support for students in the after COVID-19. And the Bedouin community will actually be receiving a lot of the support. And if you want to donate directly to Bedouin scholarships, you can also do that on our website at aabgu.org /donate Bedouin. If you haven't had enough and are just looking for more Zoom webinars from AABGU, we have some terrific ones coming up. #Webinar Wednesdays live from Israel. We're going to focus on August 5th on what we call the SOS, Support Our Student campaigns, and the important impact on the pandemic on our student body. It's actually estimated that 1 in 5 students are at risk of not continuing or returning to their education or even starting it because of the financial stress, et cetera, from the pandemic. So for a webinar focusing on this particular issue, please join us on August 5th. And on August 19th, we're having a webinar with Simon Barak, who is an expert and plant biologist, about unlocking the secrets of plant life, and great insight into the agri-tech and incredible ways we're learning to make the desert bloom and sharing that knowledge with the world. So I just want to thank everybody, the panelists, for joining us, and for the participants, and for all the amazing questions that were unanswered. We'll do our best to get those back. By the way, to the panelists, I think this is, we have over 55 questions that have built. So you did a great job really engaging the audience, and people want to know more. So we may have to have a sequel to this webinar and bring you all back to talk more about Bedouin life in Israel and at the university. As Jews, we have a value in our tradition called B'Tselem Elohim, which is that all are made in the image of God. And we are glad to have you as our neighbors and partners at the university, and we wish you the very best in your careers, especially Rahma and Siwar. We know you're going to go far, and you're going to make your communities proud, and Israel proud, and we're proud of you in the States. David Ben-Gurion, the founder and first prime minister of Israel, and the guy whose name is on the door of our university, said all kinds of great things in his life. At one point, he said it very simply: you must be good, you must help others. And on that note, I think we'll end this webinar. Thank you, panelists, for being here, and thank you to the audience for participating. Stay safe and be well.